The Galactic Alliance was dying across countless systems flames, devoured once thriving worlds. The proud fleets that once patrolled the stars now lay shattered, their wreckage, drifting silently in the void. The Sipar Dominion had torn through them like a storm, their biomechanical warships unstoppable, their forces relentless, no negotiation, no surrender, only death deep within a hidden resistance outpost. A group of leaders gathered in a dimly lit war room. The air was thick with tension, the weight of impending extinction pressing down on them. "We are out of time," General Kale muttered, staring at the holographic map. Red markers spread across the display, each one representing a fallen world, another fleet, lost, another planet gone. "We can't hold out any longer, we must send the signal," said Ambassador Jorah, her voice trembling. "But firm, it's our only chance." Silence followed. The others glanced at one another, unease evident on their faces. The signal she spoke of was ancient, older than most of their civilizations. It had been discovered in an archive, a human distress frequency, unused for centuries. "Humans are a myth, Counselor," Ves growled, his reptilian eyes narrowed with disdain. "Their empire, if it ever existed, is long dead. We cannot waste time chasing ghosts." "We don't know that," Jorah shot back. "The records are incomplete. We know they fought that Aether once. And they won. That was thousands of years ago." Vesh slammed his clawed hand on the table. "And where are they now?" No one had an answer. The truth was, no one knew what had happened to humanity. The last record spoke of them as a rising force, unstoppable, brilliant, ruthless when needed. And then nothing, as if they had vanished overnight. Some believed they had destroyed themselves. Others thought they had simply left, abandoning the galaxy to its fate. "But if they were still out there, if there was even the smallest chance, we have nothing left to lose," Hale said finally, his voice tired but resolute. "Send the signal." A low hum filled the room as the transmission beacon powered up. The message was simple but desperate. "This is the Galactic Alliance. We are facing extinction. If you are out there, help us." The signal pulsed out into the endless dark, traveling at faster than light speeds toward a forgotten corner of the galaxy. Then there was silence. Seconds passed, then minutes. The tension grew unbearable. Ves smirked. "See a waste off." A sharp beat cut through the room. The transmission console flickered to life. A reply, a voice calm and controlled, filled the chamber. "Message received, standby." The room froze. Jorah's breath caught in her throat. Cal's hands clenched into fists. Vess's smug expression faded into something close to fear. For the first time in centuries, humanity had spoken. And now they were waiting. The war room remained in stunned silence. General Kell's mind raced. The words echoed through the chamber, clear, unwavering message. "Received, standby." It wasn't an automated response. Someone somewhere had answered them. "Ambassador." Jorah was the first to move. She hurried to the console, her fingers trembling as she checked the transmission data. This isn't possible," she whispered. "The frequency, it shouldn't even be active. We barely managed to reconstruct it from ancient records." "Verify the source," Kale ordered, his voice tight. One of the technicians, a young Valen with pale blue skin, tapped at the glowing interface. "Tracing now. It's coming from outside any known territory." He hesitated. "Deep space. No registered colonies, no recorded traffic. Could it be a trick?" Counselor Ves asked, his early arrogance now replaced with suspicion. "It could be anything," Kale admitted. "But we don't have the luxury of doubt." He turned back to the technician. "Try to get a visual, anything that might confirm who we talking to." The room waited as data compiled, scanning for any ship or structure that could be the source. A moment later, the technician's eyes widened. "Sir, I've got something," he said, bringing it up. Now a holographic projection and flickered to life in the center of the room. A ship, but not just any ship. It was massive, larger than any Alliance battleship, its dark hull covered in unfamiliar markings. There was no official insignia, no Empire's crest. It looked ancient, yet terrifyingly intact, as though time itself had dared not touch it. Jorah let out a sharp breath. "That's human design," Vesh hissed in disbelief. "That can't be. Humans never built ships this size." "We would have known, would we?" Kale murmured. "We never knew what happened to them. We assumed they were gone." "But what if they weren't?" Another transmission came through this time. The voice was slightly different, colder. "You are in violation of restricted space. Identify yourself immediately." The room tensed. This wasn't a simple distress call anymore. They had wandered into something far greater than they understood. Kale stepped forward, taking a deep breath before responding. "This is General Kale of the Galactic Alliance," he said, keeping his voice steady. "We sent a distress signal. We seek aid against the CER Dominion." A long pause followed. "Too long, then?" The voice returned. "Standby for contact. Do not move." The connection cut. Jorah swallowed hard. "They're coming." Kale nodded, his gaze locked on the projection. "Colossal ship." The question is, as friends, or is something else? The war room buzzed with tension. The transmission had ended, but its impact lingered like a ghost in the air. "General," Kale clenched his fists behind his back, staring at the projection of the massive, unidentified ship. The humans, if that's truly who they were, had not outright refused contact, but they hadn't offered help either. Jorah exhaled sharply. "What do we do now?" Kale turned to the technician's scan for movement. "If they're coming, I want to know how fast and in what numbers." The young Valen tech nodded and began the scan. Seconds stretched into minutes. Then suddenly, the room filled with warning chimes. "Contact. Incoming the technician called out multiple ships. No, wait, one ship, it's moving at impossible speed. The holographic display, updated in real time. The colossal vessel was closing in, covering light years. In seconds, the ship's engines left no traditional energy signature. It was like a shadow slipping through the void without a trace. VES, pale and trembling, gripped the table. That's not possible, that's not possible. Before anyone could react, the main display flickered again. A new transmission. This time a face appeared. The war room fell into absolute silence. The being on the screen was human, or at least it looked human. His face was sharp, his skin weathered like someone who had seen far too much war. His uniform bore no insignia, no identifying markers, just solid black. His eyes cold and calculating scanned the room. When he spoke, his voice was firm. We received your distress call. Now you will explain from the beginning. Kale took a breath, steadying himself. This was it, they one chance. We are the Galactic Alliance. He said our worlds are under siege by the Typher Dominion. We have fought for years, but we are losing. He paused, then added carefully, we were told humans vanish centuries ago, but here you are. The man on the screen didn't react immediately. Then he leaned forward slightly. We did not vanish. His words carried weight, a warning hidden beneath them. Jorah stepped in then. Why did you leave the galaxy? Believed your kind was extinct. The man's expression darkened. Because the galaxy was not ready for us. The war room froze. Kale felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just an encounter with an old race. This was something much larger. The human spoke again. You have asked for our help. But before we decide, we need to know something. The display zoomed in, focusing entirely on Kale. How far are you willing to go to win this war? You said. The war room remained silent, as the human's words settled over them like a heavyweight. Kale clenched his jaw. There was no easy answer. They had already gone further than they ever thought possible. Entire worlds had been sacrificed, entire fleets lost. And yet the Cypher Dominion remained unstoppable. Jorah hesitated. Before speaking, we will do whatever it takes. The human studied her for a moment, his cold, unreadable eyes boring into her. Then he leaned back, seemingly satisfied. That remains to be seen. A strange silence followed. Then the screen flickered, and the transmission ended. Vesh exhaled sharply. They cut the signal before anyone could respond. Alarms blared across the war room. Unknown vessel approaching. The outer perimeter defenses activating. Wait, they disabled our systems. Panic spread through the officers. Kale turned toward the display, his heart pounding. The massive human ship now hovered above the last Galactic Alliance Strawn. Bold, no energy readings, no transmissions, just silent, overwhelming presence. Then without warning, an energy pulse rippled outward from the ship. It washed over the station like a wave. But instead of destruction, the system's rebooted screens flickered. Controls stabilized. The humans had just overridden their entire security grid. In an instant, a voice crackled through the speakers. No longer needing permission. We are coming aboard. The entire room tensed. Kale exchanged glances with Jorah and VES. The humans weren't asking. Moments later, the airlock doors hissed open. A single figure stepped inside. The man from the transmission. He was taller than expected. His presence, commanding, his uniform remained unmarked. Yet every step he took felt like the weight of the soldier who had fought battles beyond imagination. Armed guards raised their weapons instinctively. The human barely spared them a glance. Lower your weapons. If I wanted you dead, you wouldn't have seen me coming. His tone was calm, but it sent shivers down Cal's spine. The guards hesitated, then slowly obeyed. Kale stepped forward, forcing himself to stand tall. You said we needed to prove how far we go to win this war. The human nodded. Correct. Then, what do you want from us? Jorah demanded. The man turned to her, expression unreadable. That Cypher Dominion is a plague. You are losing because you are fighting by their rules. Kale narrowed his eyes. And you're saying humans don't? For the first time, the human's lips curled into the faintest ghost of the smirk. No, we make our own rules. The room fell silent. Kale knew then that everything was about to change. The war they thought they had been fighting was nothing compared to what was coming next. And the humans would leave the charge. The war room remained heavy with silence. The humans' presence alone had shifted the atmosphere. No longer were they simply fighting for survival. Now, they were part of something far greater, something they had yet to fully understand. Kale studied the man before him. He didn't wear armor, no medals or insignia, yet he radiated the presence of a warrior who had seen more war than any of them combined. Jorah broke the silence. You said we're fighting by the enemy's rules. Then tell us, what are we missing? The human looked at her, his expression unreadable. Then he simply said, fear. A ripple of confusion spread through the room. VES frowned. Fear? We've been fighting for survival for years. What do you think we've been feeling? The human turned to him, his gaze cold and calculating. I'm not talking about your fear. I'm talking about theirs. Kale exhaled slowly as realization set in. That Cypher Dominion had always been ruthless, always pushing forward, always controlling the war. Never once had they needed to be afraid. The human continued, stepping forward. You've been fighting to hold the line. That's why you're losing. The Cyphers see you as an obstacle, nothing more. You're an inconvenience. But if they fear you, he paused, letting his words sink in. Then you become a threat. A slow, uneasy silence followed. Kale swallowed hard. And How do we do that? The human tilted his head slightly. We hit them where it hurts, we remind them. What it means to lose. Jorah crossed her arms. That sounds like a suicide mission. The man smirked. Only if you don't do it right at that moment. The war room's main display flickered new data. Flooded the screen's detailed schematics, planetary defense, layouts, fleet formations information. So classified that even Kale, a high-ranking officer, had never seen it. Before Jorah's eyes widened, what is this? The human folded his arms, their weak points, their supply chains, command structures, internal conflicts. He turned to them with a piercing gaze. We won't fight them head-on, that's what they expect. Instead, we make them bleed in the places they think. Our untouchable Vesh leaned closer to the screen. How do you have all this? The human smirk faded. Because humans have fought them before. Cal's breath caught. You mean yes? His voice was grim, and we lost. A heavy silence followed, but then the human spoke again, his tone sharp and unique. But this time, we won't. The weight of those words settled over the room like a storm approaching. Kale knew everything was about to change, and the war was no longer just about survival. Now it was about vengeance. The air inside the war room felt different now, charged with a sense of purpose that hadn't existed before the human's words had ignited something in them. Something that Cypher Dominion had never accounted for. Hope. Kale stepped forward, his voice steady. You say, we need to make them afraid? Then tell us, where do we strike first? The human turned to the holographic display, scanning the data before him. With a few swift motions, he zoomed in on a specific system, a cluster of industrial planets supplying the Sire war machine. This, he said, pointing to the largest planet on it. This is where we begin. Jorah frowned. That's one of their core supply worlds. It's heavily defended. We don't have the numbers to take it. The human nodded. You're right, a direct assault would be suicide. He turned back to them, a glint of something dangerous in his eyes. But I never said we were attacking it. Vesh narrowed his eyes. Then what's the plan? A smirk played on the human. Lots. We're going to make them think their own kind has turned against them. A ripple of confusion spread through the group. Kale felt a flicker of understanding. You mean sabotage? The human nodded. Sabotage, misdirection, psychological warfare. The tie or don't fear battle, because they've always controlled it. But what happens when their own ships start firing on each other? When their generals start suspecting betrayal? When their leaders start doubting their own soldiers? Jorah's expression shifted. As she caught on, they start turning on themselves. Exactly, the human's voice was calm, but there was something chilling in it. If we can't match their numbers, we break their unity. Instead, the Siar are a war machine, cold, efficient. But even the strongest machine falls apart when the gears grind against each other. Vesh crossed his arms. And how do you expect to pull this off? The human smirk widened. Because we've done it before. A cold silence filled the room. Cal's mind raced. He had always wondered why the humans had vanished, why they had stayed in the shadows for so long now. He was beginning to understand. Jorah exhaled. This is insane. The human smirk faded. His expression turned deadly serious. No, this is war. For the first time, Kale felt something shift in his chest. For the first time, the war wasn't just about survival. It was about making the Kiar pay. The Kiar Dominion was in chaos. Reports flooded in from every sector, entire fleets firing on each other's supply lines, collapsing command centers overwhelmed with conflicting orders. The once mighty war machine of the Tiar was grinding itself into ruin, and at the center of it all was a single undeniable truth. They were afraid. Inside the hidden war room, Kale and the others watched the destruction unfold. The holographic map displayed red markers, cipher forces, blinking out one by one. The sabotage was working. Jorah turned to the human, her voice hushed with disbelief. How did you know this would happen? The human, who had barely spoken since the plan was set in motion, finally looked up. Because fear isn't just a weapon, it's a disease. It spreads, it consumes. And once it takes hold, it never lets go. Kale exhaled, his hands clenched into fists. He had seen that cipher crush countless civilizations, always so sure of their power, so certain of their victory. But now they were running, fighting among themselves, desperately trying to make sense of an enemy. They could no longer see. A transmission flickered onto the screen, a cipher. General, his cold insectoid features twisted in frustration and fear. To whoever is responsible for this, we will find you, we will burn your worlds, erase your history, and scatter your ashes across the void. The human only tilted his head slightly, then without hesitation, he sent a single reply. You already tried. Silence. Then the feed cut off. The war room was still, every eye fixed on the human. Jorah whispered, it's over, isn't it? The human's expression didn't change. Not yet, but soon. Kale looked at the Typher fleet, now tearing itself apart. They had called the humans as a last desperate hope. But they had not summoned warriors, they had summoned monsters. And for the first time, that Cypher Dominion was learning what it meant to be hunted. The Cypher Dominion was unraveling faster than anyone had anticipated across the galaxy. Their once mighty fleets turned on each other, their war machines crumbling from within. What had begun as whispers of doubt among their ranks had exploded into full-blown panic. The fear the humans had planted had taken root, spreading like wildfire through their command structure. In the war room, Jorah and the remnants of the Galactic Alliance watched in stunned silence as the Thyre forces self-destructed. The holographic display flickered with real-time feeds battlecruisers, engaging in friendly fire admirals, issuing contradictory orders, entire planet surrendering without fight. Jorah turned to the humans, still unable to fully comprehend what was happening. How did you do this? How did you break them? Without firing a single shot, the humans, still calm, still unreadable, finally exhaled. They broke themselves. We just reminded them why. Kale frowned, his mind racing. I understand that Tyre have ruled through fear for centuries. They've crushed entire civilizations. What makes this different? The humans' eyes darkened. Because this time they are the ones afraid. A sudden alert chimed, and a transmission appeared on the screen. It was from the Kyre Supreme Warlord himself. His once proud, cold expression was now hollow, his many eyes darting wildly. He looked like a creature who had seen the abyss and found something staring back. We surrender, the warlord rasped, his voice barely above a whisper. Call off your whatever it is you've done, please. We will withdraw. We will leave your territories. Just stop this. Jorah's breath caught in her throat. She had spent her entire life fearing that Exar, believing them to be unstoppable. And now they were begging. Kale stepped forward. And if we refuse, the Kyre warlord flinched. Then there will be nothing left of us. We will turn on ourselves. Until we are extinct. You have infected us. We cannot fight something we do not understand. He stopped, shuddering, as if something unseen had reached out and gripped his very soul. The human let the silence drag on before it finally lies speaking. You misunderstand. He said, we didn't infect you, you infected yourselves. The moment you thought you could control everything with fear. The warlord let out a slow, shuddering breath. Then, what will you do? The human stared at him for a long moment. Before replying, nothing. The transmission cut. The war room was silent. Jorah looked at the human. Nothing. After everything they've done. The human shrugged. We don't need to do anything. They've already lost. The more they try to fix what's broken, the deeper they'll sink their own paranoia. We'll finish what we started. Kale watched as the last of the Cypher forces collapsed into chaos, a once mighty empire crumbling under the weight of its own terror. He looked back at the human and finally understood. Humans didn't just fight wars, they ended them. The galaxy held its breath. That Cypher Dominion, the unstoppable force that had terrorized civilizations for centuries, was no more. Their fleets had either turned on each other or fed into deep space. Their warlords, once feared as merciless conquerors, now cowered in the ruins of their fallen empire. And yet, despite their total collapse, the Galactic Alliance remained cautious. Was it truly over? Jorah watched the monitors in the war room, her fingers tightening around the edge of the console. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Cypher worlds in chaos, their chain of command shattered beyond repair. Yet something still didn't sit right. They're gone, Kale muttered almost to himself. After everything, they're really gone. The human, standing silently near the window, finally turned. No. Jorah's stomach clenched. What do you mean, no? The not gone, the human said. They're just waiting. A cold silence settled over the room. Kale shook his head. That doesn't make sense. We broke them. Their fleets are in ruin. Their leaders are either dead or surrendering. What are they waiting for? The human didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped forward, bringing up the last known locations of the Cypher forces. His eyes scanned the display, following the patterns of their retreat. Then softly, he spoke. Tell me what happens when a predator is wounded, but not dead. Kale frowned it. Then his eyes widened. It strikes back. Jorah's breath caught in her throat. You're saying they're regrouping? The human nodded. The ones who surrendered are the weak ones, the ones who lost their nerve. But the true believers, the fanatics, they won't go down so easily. They'll retreat, wait for the right moment, and come back harder than ever. Kale cursed under his breath. We should have wiped them out completely. When we had the chance. The human shook his head. That's exactly what they'd expect us to do. If we chase them now, they'd use that against us, lure us into an ambush, force us into another war on their terms. No, we don't fight their kind with brute force. Jorah hesitated. Then what do we do? A slow smile formed on the human's face, but there was no warmth in it, only a cold, calculated certainty. We don't chase them. He said we make them afraid to ever come back. Kale narrowed his eyes. How? The human turned to the controls and brought up the classified data files. The Galactic Alliance had gathered on the Tyre, their history, their psychology, their weaknesses. Then in a voice as calm as the void itself, he said we turn their own nightmares against them. The Xar survivors thought they were safe deep in the uncharted void, beyond the reach of the Galactic Alliance. They gathered in the ruins of their fallen Empire warships, drifted silently in the dark, their hulls cracked and burned. But their crews still loyal. They whispered of vengeance. They sharpened their blades. In secret, they dreamed of the day they would rise again. And then one by one, their ships began to vanish. At first, it was dismissed as accidents, miscalculations, and hyperspace jumps. Engine failures in the deep cold. Then came the distress signals, short, garbled transmissions of screaming crew members, before silence consumed them. By the time the Sire High Command realized the truth, it was too late. The darkness they had hidden in was no longer empty. A single message appeared on every Cypher screen, written in their own language in cold, glowing red text. We see you. Panic spread like wildfire. Commanders barked desperate orders. Fleets scrambled, trying to regroup, but something was in their systems. Engines shut down without warning. Oxygen levels dropped without explanation. Hallways that should have been empty echoed with footsteps. That Tiar were not alone. A lone warlord The last of their high command stood on the bridge of his failing battleship. His hands trembled as he reached for the console, trying to override the lockdown. But then he saw it, a reflection in the screen, a figure standing behind him, not an alien. Not a machine, a human. The warlord turned, mouth open in a silent scream. Darkness swallowed him across the void. Every remaining cipher ship received the final message: "We told you to never come back," and just like that, the Sire were never seen again.